with Just the Right Angle, coming at you live at 10 a.m., doing a quick broadcast over several things that affect you. Of course, you can follow me at Just the Right Angle, where I talk about issues and how you can get involved. Well, folks, last night was not a good night for the nation, for Republicans, and in particularly for those living in what we call, I guess, purple states or even blue states. New York has elected a pro Muslim, pro communist, anti American leftist. Virginia has their politics has changed back. They have Democrats are now back in the governor's seat. A lot of down the ballot issues. Democrats have won. But really, it's not so much a Democrat victory. Again, if you follow me, you know that the real reason behind these weird elections is because it's not so much Democrats winning, it's Republicans losing. Republicans lost. Republicans failed to really capitalize on what's been overall. Last year was, of course, a red super victory. But even then, you could see some places where Republicans didn't do as well. And actually, Arkansas, the state I'm in, is one of those places. During the Trump presidency, while he was winning and other states were turning red, state of Arkansas actually lost a House seat to the Democrats. Now, Republicans in Arkansas still have a supermajority, but it was something that should not have happened. We should have had more gains. And so I'm talking about a little bit about why these things happened. And this is an article in February. So I want you to remember this is February of earlier of this year. Virginia GOP feud with conservative wing spills into critical election year. So there was a intra-party battle came in the form of an open letter signed by 6 Republican officials from the hardline conservative 5th District, including Chairman Rick Buchanan and 5 members of the state Central Committee. The letter sent to the committee last week takes aim at the 80-member body's executive committee, which during December 8th meeting attempted to penalize 4 GOP officials by banning them from leadership roles for 2 years. The officials were ousted in September for refusing to sign a renewed locality pledge of loyalty to former state Senator John McGuire, the party's congressional nominee who went on to win the November 5th election. So, folks, what happened was these GOP officials were being told, you need to sign a loyalty pledge to this guy running for office. Nobody's ever been forced to sign loyalty pledges in races before. And of course, there was apparently a big primary beforehand. Has there ever been in such a demand of our party? I've never heard of this in any party, a U.S. political party at least. I know in third world countries, you basically have to pledge loyalty to the leader or you die. And there's been lots of fights over this. There's been people, a lot of drama. And then here, 4 people were stripped of their titles within Virginia Republican Party leadership. 1 submitted his resignation. And then later on, they said the ban for leadership for 2 years was excessive. However, for Buchanan and his allies, the issue remains far from resolved. Their letters criticize what they see as an attempt to humiliate, ostracize, and expel certain members from leadership for political retribution. They argue that internal divisions, if left unchecked, could weaken the party heading into a critical election year. And boy, was he right on that one. That's what's happened. That's part of what's happened here in Arkansas, and that's part of what's going to happen in the midterms. And in no way, shape, or form am I telling people that the Republican Party needs to so-called supposedly unite, which is an ignorant and stupid statement that means nothing. No, we need to kick out these type of anti-conservative consultants that are in Republican Party leadership that keep kicking conservatives out. And, making people sign a loyalty pledge doesn't unite the party. It just made things worse. And and this guy left with a warning. If Republicans want to win back the majorities in the state legislature, ensure a victory for Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, the party's presumptive gubernatorial nominee, they need to come up with a message and reach into the homes of the folks that are my neighbors, Buchanan said, the people that are not, part of the GOP consultant class. That didn't happen. And you see the result. It's the only way that's what Youngkin did. He did it very well. He pushed it. He had a bus tour in Southside and Southwest Virginia, and he came to see us, which is almost unheard of. You're not going to turn Democrats. You can get the people out there that normally don't vote except in presidential elections. That's exactly what happened. The consultant class just dismissed those conservative people that don't go to the political functions and just assumed that they would come out and vote, and they didn't. And here's this is a 6th District GOP chairman, John Massoud, and he talked about some of the issues that happened with this. The RVP respects us, the Republican Party of Virginia. And it said, look, sometimes there's disagreements, but when you start, again, going after people, threatening, kicking them out of committees, that's the kind you end up losing. If the far right sits out, either due to frustration with GOP's leadership or opposition to Earl Sears, their path to victory narrows significantly. As far as I can tell, Earl Sears seemed like a good candidate. She had won lieutenant governor, and she was part of that group right there with Youngkin. But it looks like it's because of this frustration with GOP leadership, and we saw this before. Here's another one. In Suffolk, GOP infighting reached a boiling point in 2023 when the 2nd Congressional District GOP Committee took the extraordinary step of dissolving a city's entire Republican committee, erasing a 156-member organization that had been growing its conservative base. And if y'all follow my show, you know that this kind of stuff has been happening in Arkansas. Let me post a link to this article. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it is fairly long, but y'all need to read this and see this is what happened. I'm posting it in the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and post it here in the comment section. Folks, if you don't have a Rumble account, get one. It is the best way to keep informed about what is going on. I mean, I do post this on Facebook and lots of other places, but again, if you want to know what is really going on, you need to get onto Rumble. It is the much better alternative to YouTube, many other videos. Of course, it does just by visiting and showing you help support this broadcast. But until this kind of stuff is stopped, until, again, these consultants are kicked out, and I don't know exactly who was involved, who did what in terms of kicking people out, but typically it's GOP leadership. And we need to hold them accountable. We need to hold some of these consultants accountable. We need to let people know, hey, you lost a race. Should you still keep being paid? Because right now, most political consultants, whether they win or lose a race, they still get paid. A lot of people don't know that. And they get paid a lot. And all the money that could have been used to help other candidates. But you can see here some of the fight regarding the Suffolk Republican Committee. Instead of removing one guy, they took the unprecedented dissolving the entire Republican Committee. and then a former committee chair to reconstitute it, which means they probably kicked out all the conservatives. And so this kind of stuff is happening all across the nation, and Republican conservatives who are trying to not just be getting involved in terms of working for free, but actually want to be involved in the decision-making process because they know the leadership is failing, they've sat out, and rightfully so. Who can blame them? It's a spam caller. Sorry about that. So yeah, read this article and then ask yourself, what's going on in my local Republican Party? Am I dealing with the same kind of drama? Are there people getting kicked out? Are there people getting forced out of office? Are there people being kicked out based upon stupid rules that don't seem to make much sense? Now, here's the leadership for the Republican Party of Virginia. There's their chair, first vice chair. I don't know any of these people. I don't know if some of these people fought for conservatives. I don't know if it's hard to say what happened regarding who in the leadership did what. It'd probably be better if somebody who was there could say what happened. But I know that for a lot of places, and I know in the past when Trump lost to Sleepy Joe, it was because of GOP leadership, specifically Ronna McDaniel. And if you've followed my show, I've talked about Ronna McDaniel. And it's gonna. And the sad thing is it's probably going to happen in the midterms again, unless people do something about it. And yes, there was lots of voter fraud, but again, if you have these consultant types that are in the running the Republican Party, it's not going to matter. They're not going to do anything about the voter fraud. So but again, part of and yes, they probably may not have picked the best candidates. Here's some image from Sears, who said who was the candidate for governor. I mean, yeah, you can there's a difference in disagreeing with Trump and saying you won't vote for him in 2024 when he's running against Kamala Harris. GOP leadership in Virginia is non-existent. And sadly, that may be the case. And of course, there's lots of other drama going on. There is, of course, the government shutdown. And I know a lot of political pundits are going to try to pretend that that's somehow a reason why Republicans lose. They always blame conservative efforts when Republicans lose elections. They don't bother to look at who ran the campaign. How were conservatives treated before by the leadership? It's always conservatives that are blamed when the election loses. But I'm going to go on a break for a little bit. I'm going to play you a little bit of another issue that's come up that you should have heard about in media a lot more and haven't. I'll just play.
Good afternoon, and live from Texas, this is the Will Cain Show. Fox News alert, chilling new details from the Arctic frost probe. Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley revealing Biden's FBI targeted at least 430 Republicans and conservative entities.
197 subpoenas were issued by Jack Smith and his team. These subpoenas were issued to 34 individuals and 163 businesses, including financial institutions. The subpoena requested records and communications related to over 430 individual and organizations.
Senator Grassley also revealing Jack Smith secretly obtained phone records of lawmakers.
We've learned Jack Smith secretly obtained phone record data from at least 8 senators and 1 congressman. At least 11 members with Verizon accounts were affected. AT&T informed me that they challenged the legal basis for Jack Smith's efforts, and Smith backed down.
He went on to call a spade a spade.
Contrary to what Smith has said publicly, this was clearly a fishing expedition. If this had happened to Democrats, they'd be as rightly outraged as we are outraged.
All that is new documents revealing former January 6th committee chairman Benny Thompson and Vice Chair Liz Cheney worked hand in hand with former special counsel Jack Smith, sharing transcripts, texts, and documents with the DOJ, aiming to take down President Trump and his associates. In one message to Jack Smith, they wrote, "The Select Committee to investigate January 6th produced you 16 interviews and deposition transcripts. Along with exhibits associated with those transcripts, the Select Committee will continue to provide materials to your office on a rolling basis." Stunning. Hard to find an appropriate parallel. The FBI and DOJ opened Operation Arctic Frost after the 2020 election to examine efforts to overturn that election. Throughout the investigation, over 90 GOP-linked groups were probed. Critics, of course, point out this is political targeting, but the DOJ maintains it was pursuing legitimate crimes. And it also included active members of Congress, including 8 senators. As I've mentioned, it's hard to find an appropriate political and historical parallel.
There is none. But of course, it doesn't matter, because one of the other things that Republicans like to do is, while they will whine and complain about problems with the judiciary, they won't use the power of the purse to defund them. And of course, we have this all across the nation and across the state. We have judicial activists, and they'll prosecute people, but then they'll let criminals out of jail. They'll go after Republicans, and then when it's time to, here comes the budget, they go ahead. Republicans will go ahead and give them their money for their courtrooms. By the way, a lot of county budgets are going to be worked on pretty soon. Your county is going to be working on a budget for next year. If you have an activist judge, if you have some stupid pet project that's being bankrolled, if there's an organization like the Association of Counties, and you can get your county to defund them, that will do a lot of great work. That'll save you lots of money. It will also help this nation. I'm not all sure, again, what happens with who's to blame for Virginia lost an election there. But I'm going to mention this article as well. And I think this is from NPR. You don't need to listen to it, but I just want to let you, this guy that took over Earl Sears' new campaign, apparently the previous person was fired. And then in June, let's see what date this is, July July of 2025, that campaign manager was led by Corey Barsky, a strategist who's been successful in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so I don't know. Here's the resume for Corey. Here's from his website. He has a strategist group called Cold Spark. And it doesn't list, one of the things I don't like about these consultant firms, they never seem to find, it's very difficult to find out which campaigns they actually ran. So here he's got a statement from this guy in Pennsylvania. And here's the organizations that this guy has helped. Orthodox Union, Florida First Project, Term Limits Convention, Toomey for U.S. Senate, Bruce Rano, Secure Energy for America, Congressional Leadership from the Club for Growth. And I don't know what all these organizations are. I know that we have a bunch of consultants that in Arkansas that work for organizations that are vehemently against the platform of the Republican Party. Matter of fact, here I can show you. And another website here. And this is what I've been talking about for a long time, is that we need to kick these consultants out of the Republican Party of Arkansas. Because until we do, they're going to keep stabbing conservative efforts in the back. So here we go. Here's JCD Consulting. Here's Chase Duggar, the founder and CEO. And he tries to take credit for turning Arkansas red. He oversaw the recruitment of a number of Republican candidates and directed the 2010 midterm election strategy. No, that is an absolute lie. He did not direct the 2010 midterm strategy. It was conservatives within mainly the Tea Party effort. Those are the ones that made the gains in 2010. But then here are, if you go back to the home, here are his clients. In particular, this organization right here is an anti-American organization, is the Association of County Judges. We have a bunch of corrupt deals going on in counties right now where a bunch of solar panel farms and windmill farms are being cranked up. They're being, plans are being done behind closed doors, and the people have no idea they are even going on. And by the time they do, this cowardly organization and its parent company, the Arkansas Association of Counties, writes a letter saying it's already a done deal. And that organization also takes 1% of the budgets from every county that should go to fixing roads, to fixing infrastructure, to going to first responders, and some of it needs to go back in the pockets of people. Instead, it goes to this organization which lobbies against your interest and the interests of the Republican Party. And Chase Duggar is on the Republican Party of Arkansas Rules Committee. At least he was last time I checked. This is Big Medical. These are, of course, organizations that supported the COVID mandates. The Electric Co-ops of Arkansas. You wonder why your utility bills go up and why these electric companies like to go off and do stupid pet projects with green things, green pet projects. Well, there you go. And then Verizon, the phone company, other organizations that this guy is a client. These are some clients that they represent, that they're proud to represent. So I'm not going to sit here and say that this Cold Spark is the same thing, but at least we need to know who they are. And I assume that this guy was the campaign manager all the way until the end. But again, they need to be held accountable. Somebody needs to take them aside and said, what happened? Should this guy get a paycheck? Should there at least be a decrease in what he was going to get paid based upon the fact that he did lose? That's all I really want. So again, government shutdown is still going on. It's still going to continue to irritate some folks, but the big problem is the consultant class. And one person who understood that better than anybody is Charlie Kirk. I'm actually wearing a Charlie Kirk shirt here. And this is the turning point. I don't know if y'all can see it. But I'm going to play a little bit. Actually, when I go on next break. Here. There we go. But yeah, Charlie Kirk understood this better than anyone, and his efforts are part of the reason why we won in the 2020 election, 2024 elections. We kicked Ronna McDaniel and a lot of her minions out. And they were ousted from the party, and with good reason. "14 Wildcat." Yes, interesting point. Virginia did forget MAGA. They didn't just forget MAGA. They kicked MAGA out. Oh, by the way, you can see here's a tab of actually the broadcast of what's going on. But yeah, there was, of course, voter fraud, but MAGA was not only not used, they were, again, as I just posted in that article there, they were actually kicked out of the process. And and again, it's happening in other states, and I know it's happening in my state, where conservatives are ousted, being kicked out based upon made-up rules. And that's why I had the image saved of what I had today. I got this from ChatGPT, but it's the same thing. The only difference is it's Rhino consultants that are sabotaging the cause. Let me go back here and show this interview with Charlie Kirk that was done 2 years ago. And talking about how much more advanced the DNC's infrastructure is. I'm going to go ahead and play this. This is by Megan. This is a Megyn Kelly interview.
You've been critical of the RNC as playing Frisbee when you say the Democrats are what? What are the Democrats doing versus the RNC?
Oh boy, how much time you got? So look, I want to win, and I hate losing, and I've been very critical of RNC leadership. I tried to get Harmeet Dillon in there. Look, I think Ronna's a very sweet person. I think she should go run for Congress. She's always been very good to me, but she's a loser. She has overseen losing election after losing election, and there's always an excuse, right? Whether it be 2018, 2020, 2022, there's always an excuse. I think that in business, in anything, after 6 years of failure, you got to make a change. You have to say, you're done. We're going to find somebody new. Let's get some fresh thinking. The Democrats they've gone all in, and they did this post-COVID, and they were very smart. They were very treacherous, but they were very strategic. And parts of this, little crumbs of this were articulated in Molly Ball's article, the Time magazine article, the secret campaign or the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election, where they talk about this party infrastructure through nonprofit groups and activist groups and legal groups, lawfare, that not just manipulated, but they've really taken the sexiness out of politics, where it's not about candidate selection. It's not even always about debate or messaging or popularity. It's about the boring stuff of politics, the clipboard and tennis shoes type of work, the voter registration, the ballot chasing, and the machinery. And my evidence that I submit is that they are able to get somebody who should not be a U.S. Senator, John Fetterman, to beat a very qualified candidate, an incredibly smart man, Mehmet Oz. Oz should be the U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania. How is that possible? Well, some people say it's because of abortion. That might be partially true, but it's mostly true because the Democrats have built an incredibly well-funded and bulletproof type machine that registers their low prop voters and gets people to vote early and gets their mail-in ballots in. And we as Republicans have done none of that infrastructure. And I can say that as someone who lives in Arizona. It's basically a major hope campaign. Well, I hope we're going to win. I hope we just have an ability to get our voters out. And the RNC does not have the sophistication, does not have the commitment to this kind of grassroots work. They're headquartered in Washington, D.C. They're consultant heavy. 40 to 50% of all the money they raise goes towards raising more money, actually. And so my argument is this: we have to downsize the RNC and we have to get back to a culture of winning. And the most important thing that can happen on the American right, in my personal opinion, is less emphasis on candidate selection and more emphasis on the boring stuff. And I do not think the current RNC leadership has earned the trust of the American grassroots or donors to say, keep on giving us money. It's time for us to start to create it ourselves.
How can we do an end around that RNC? How do people who want to see sane people elected and not these leftists who want to change the country do an end around? You know, that you get to the point where it's like, they're no good to us. We're going to have to forge on without them.
Yeah, we're going to try to do part of it at Turning Point Action, but we're open and we have a political arm that we've really built, and we're trying to build to do the ballot chasing in Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin. But part of it is trying to learn.
What does
from
that
the
mean,
left.
ballot chasing? Can you just define what you mean by that?
Sure. Yeah, it's super important. So back. Meanwhile, we have 30 days to go collect ballots, to go get our low propensity voters to turn in their ballots. And we are going to maximize our turnout over a 30-day window where Republicans and conservatives are going to just try to bum rush the polls on one day. I think that's a failed strategy on our part. So ballot chasing, specifically in Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona, is changing our philosophy, admitting that we were engaging in an outdated model, and realizing, reluctantly, but realizing and recognizing we are in the era of mass mail-in voting. Therefore, we're going to try to increase the window where we get our low propensity voters to turn in their mail-in ballots or to vote in person and early, to try to get that extra 5 or 10% that have not been showing up to the polls to try to compete with the Democrat turnout operation. So ballot chasing is the legal way that you're able to do this in Arizona, Wisconsin, and Georgia, which are the 3 states that the inevitable Republican nominee, or Donald Trump, who I think will be the nominee, needs to win, where you deploy hundreds and probably over 1,000 paid workers that knock on door after door, and they'll say, hey, Miss Sally Sue or Mrs. Smith, I see you have a ballot on your kitchen table, and you know she has a ballot because all that data is public. I'd like to recommend that you turn it in, and you'll be met with resistance. Oh, I don't want to vote, or all this, but you are, quote unquote, chasing the ballot until completion, until it has gone actually in the mailbox or into the Secretary of State's office or the local recorder's office, more specifically. You're not allowed to touch the ballot. That is illegal in those states. We believe Democrats do engage in illegal activity. We're not going to do any of that. But this is the type of clipboard and tennis shoes, gritty type of hustle work that can get you 15, 20, 30, 40,000 low propensity voters that otherwise are not voting at all. And the way that it worked, for example, Kari Lake, who I adore, should be governor of Arizona, did not engage in a robust early voting strategy. It was all about showing up on election day. And what we saw were machines failing, 2-hour waiting lines, 3-hour waiting lines. So part of what I'm trying to communicate, and I think the RNC is not capable of doing this at all, is we have to have an admission that the old way of doing elections is failing, where we focus nothing on just on candidates. We focus on messaging strategies. All that's fine, or TV ads. There's a place for that. I think what's more important is whether or not we have a durable machine that can compete with the George Soros, Arabella Advisors, multi-billion-dollar Leviathan that is currently eking out victories in Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona. If you were to ask the average Arizonan, do you want an open border? Do you want pornography taught to your kids in the local school district? Do you want hyperinflation? No, I think we live in a center-right country, Megan. I really do. The reason that does not always manifest politically is we're not playing the game, and the Democrats currently are.
You're so right. And the money advantage on the Dem side, it's not the end all be all, because, I saw a headline just the other day saying Jeffrey Katzenberg, very famous movie producer in Hollywood, said that I'll spend any amount to get Joe Biden reelected. Well, let me tell you something. Back in 2015, 16, I saw Jeffrey Katzenberg in person, and he said the exact same thing to me back then about Hillary Clinton. Guess how that worked out? So it's not all about the money that is going to be spent on behalf of the candidate. It's about how it gets used. Is it used wisely or not? And I see your point. The GOP, the RNC, is not using the money wisely. We need some whippersnapper in there who understands how to actually play the game.
Yeah, and so what the Democrats have done is they've decentralized. It's kind of hilarious when you think about it. Ironic is a better word. Where the Democrats that want government bureaucracy and one size fits all, they actually run their political infrastructure through a network of entrepreneurs, of political entrepreneurs that get $3 million, $4 million, $5 million in micro communities in the Black community in Atlanta or in the white working class community in Wisconsin. Whereas we as Republicans, we actually run our elections incredibly monolithically, right? A couple organizations, very centralized, where we should embrace a much more decentralized entrepreneurial model. Now, there is risk to that. The risk to that is that you can't control everything and that you need more accountability and you're going to have to try to see who succeeds. And guess what, Megan? The old guard might not get all the credit. I know that sounds to be super scary, right? Oh, you're trying to tell me that we can't take who cares about the credit? I want to win. I don't need the credit. I don't care if the RNC gets the credit. We need to defeat these people.
Look, you did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. You paid your people and you pulled your business through the pandemic. And now doing the tough thing could qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee.
Okay, so that's the end of that. Looks like that's the end of that interview. She's doing a commercial there, but you get the point. Sorry. But yeah, that was Charlie Kirk 2 years ago, and because of what he did, we managed to win that election. We, the people, managed to save the country for at least a little bit longer. Well, unfortunately, folks, for the state of Arkansas, we still need to we got to kick these rhinos out. As I mentioned, Chase Duggar, you need to kick him out. We need to do the same thing we did for the RNC years ago with Ronna McDaniel. Needs to be done to the Republican Party of Arkansas, and for pretty much the same reason. We have a bunch of people that just don't need to be there. And until they're removed, it's all for nothing. And one of the problems we have is special election tax increases. We have demanded for session after session of the Republican supermajority, stop having these elections in off-election times. And so they've been curtailed, they've been reduced to where they can't, these city and county governments that constantly want to sneak by tax increases can't do it during things like Valentine's Day or a few days before Christmas, but they can still have them on May and November of off-election years. And so on November 18th, there will be several special elections. And because the second Arkansas law limits cities and counties in Arkansas to holding special elections on 2 days of the year, the second Tuesday in May, which is when the primary would be, or the second Tuesday in November, and because the second Tuesday this year is on a holiday, it's Veterans Day, the election falls on the next Tuesday. So it'd be the 18th. Now, this is an article originally by Kristen Higgins. I talked about this days before. This is being reposted on Conduit News. If you've seen my broadcast, you know I mentioned these before, but I will mention them again. And I'm actually going to post a link. So anybody who sees this and goes, where can I find this? Go into the comments under Rumble, and you can see the link where I have posted this. But let me go and show you go down the list of elections again. And again, if you don't know, if you're like, wait a minute, there's one in my place, please let these people know and let me know. Calhoun County, a 1% sales tax, supposedly for the county road. Marion County, people are being asked a 0.5% sales tax for the jail and law enforcement. Bella Vista, voters are being asked to renew a 1% sales tax that would otherwise expire. And just to let you know, any tax increase that claims that is going to sunset, that is a lie. These tax increases never sunset. They will always find some kind of excuse to use these tax for tax increases. It is always the case. I've never seen one of these tax increases where it just sunset and they just let it go. But again, this is in Benton County, northwest Arkansas. Again, it's 1% sales tax, and the amount of $6 million. Bunch of fire stations, city administration complex. Does it really need to be renovated? And this is one of the other problems they have is they'll do these pet projects. And some of it will be for things that actually are needed, like fire and police, but then some of it will be for pet projects. And you can't separate the two. It's illegal. You should be forced. If it's going to be for first responders, it should only be for first responders. So there is a 0.75% sales tax increase in the city of Conway, not Conway County. Conway's in Faulkner County. Almost $53 million in bonds for an outdoor musical venue. There's multi-million dollars, there's millions of dollars in the music industry. They can pay for that. There's all kinds of recording studios and celebrities that could easily buy a music venue, or you could get private organizations to sponsor a music venue. Just like they have Simmons Bank Arena, you could have a local bank, XYZ Bank, pay for that. A convention center, you don't need a convention center. You can go for most of these events, you can use a high school gym. Another thing for the arts, again, no offense, there's a lot of money in the arts and entertainment industry. They can pay for it themselves. And then, of course, again, like I said before, they tied in with police and fire. They should not be able to do this. This should be a totally separate thing. And then, of course, some of it is for streets, but if you look in there, which may include roundabouts, which slightly improve traffic but aren't necessarily needed. Multi-use paths, so that's bike paths. So there'll be places where potholes won't be filled in, but they'll make bike paths. There is a place called Greenland, Arkansas. I didn't even know it existed. I don't know where it is. There's some place that's going to be annexed into city limits. Washington, it's in Washington County. And the little town of Ozark, an entertainment district. This is where people can get drunk. And this one's a little different. If you want a place where a bunch of people can get drunk and start fights, you vote for the ordinance to keep the entertainment district. If you don't want that, you vote against. Sherwood, this is a big one. This is a 0.75% sales tax $4 million in bond. Certain park system improvements, multi-purpose event centers. They already have the Jack Evans Senior Center. There's already a massive sports complex right there in downtown Sherwood, just a few blocks away from the police station. They already have one. They already have parks and trails, picnics, and I don't. This is again. This is look how much money they're going to spend on this on top of what they already spend. And improvements, and maybe maybe they need to improve restrooms, but and of course the animal shelter, the fur babies. And you can see there, this is in Pulaski County. There is a group that is fighting against that tax increase. It is called Sherwood Truth. I've mentioned them before. Americans for Prosperity is leading the effort in that. I think they're called Sherwood Truth. SherwoodTaxTruth.com. There's another one called Our Sherwood Page. So this is actually this is a nice video, and since I'm about to do a quick break here, I'm going to go ahead and play this. If I can get it up here. All right, let me take I'm a little bit past the usual break here. I try to do a break at 15 and 30, but I'll take this one right quick. This is just a real quick video. I'll just stay on to do this. You already have those, by the way. Okay, when you hear the phrase economic development, you're being scammed. Economic development is a cowardly way of saying take tax money from other places and and give it to other people. And these are the organizations that Stevens Incorporated, Baldwin and Shell. They're the ones that get the construction projects. They're also the ones that bankrolled the Valentine's Day North Little Rock millage tax. And then I don't know who this is. Of course, your local chamber of commerce. Usually, most of your chambers of commerce, they're usually on the side of these tax increases as well. The state chamber of commerce is for tax increases. Of course, they've always been anti-American in every other way. They support the LGBT agenda. They're supporters of illegal immigration. Now, some of your local chambers of commerce may be good folks, but the Sherwood one, as you can see, they promote this stuff. Stevens Incorporated sells the bonds. Baldwin and Shell does the projects. Cromwell Architects design them, and then Sherwood Chamber promotes the tax. So that's the fight on there. Let me go back to the Conduit article. That's a repeat of the list of tax increases here. Texarkana voters in the city are being asked to approve a 3-bond issue, $2 million, issuing $41 million, almost $42 million, which may include construction, reconstruction, acquisition, or improvements to roads, trails, bridges, and viaducts. So it's a slush fund. It's a slush fund. See, they're being told, oh, we got to use this to paper the streets. But then when you look at the fine print, it says, well, may, which means they can decide to spend it all on a bike path. And that's for Texarkana. And then special school districts, Arkadelphia School District, property tax increase of 3 mills. Paid a debt over 32 years. By the way, we're over $38 trillion in national debt. Cleveland County School District, this is an increase of 6 mills for a new gym because the NCAA, well, yeah, the NAACP, but the NCAA, the NBA, all these other sports organizations that are, make millions of dollars, they for some reason can't buy a new gym. Of course they can. Lee County School District, increase of 15.7 mills. Wow, that is huge. I forgot where Lee County is for the school system, which by the way takes a large bulk of the federal and state funds, but it's never enough. Nettleton School District, increase of 4.8 mills, $94 million. Debt over the course of 31 years on top of everything else. School facilities, Pocahontas School District, increase of 2.9 mills, $16 million. Debt for over, it's like 30-something years. Star City School District, increase of 5 mills. Pre-K place, and then a kindergarten, and then a tornado shelter. And then this is a little bit about apparently there was one for Little River. And it looks like there was some corruption involved with this. The county judge's involvement with industrial revenue bond. Okay, this was at the U of A Division of Agricultural Research and Extension. I had visited that website before. I'm actually the one that let that organization know about the Star City and Cleveland County School District, and I don't think I knew about the Lee one. And again, as I said before, if you see this list and you're like, wait a minute, there's one in my neck of the woods and it's not listed anywhere, please let us know. Let us know ASAP. Because again, it's at November 18th is the election. Early voting, I know in most places will be starting from the 12th through the 17th. Usually, typically, it is done at the county courthouse. That's just the general rule. If for some reason it's being held another place, let everyone else know. And of course, this is again, but I don't know. I doubt unfortunately, we're still stuck with machines. Here's a post from Twitter about what's going on. They, being Speaker of the House and Speaker of the Senate, have had 10 months to pass secure election laws and impeach judges. Nothing. Both are tagged. Let them know they are failing the American people. Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Leader John Thune. And yeah, that's part of the problem is once again, the Republican leadership wants to lose. It's not about the Democrats didn't win. It's Republican leadership lost. And they lost on purpose. Well, folks, we got about 5 minutes left. What can you do about this? Obviously, talking about this doesn't mean anything if we don't have a plan of what to do. Just like Charlie Kirk did, we forced reform within the Republican Party on a national level. We need to do it again. We need to force it on a state level. Right now, you can file to run for your county committee. You can see posts of where, if there even is a GOP county committee in your area, and if so, where are they meeting? They are doing filing right now. You can pay your dues and become a member. Find out if that county committee is conservative. If they are, help them. If they are not, take it over and record and post every single detail of the way so that you can kick these guys, particularly this guy, Chris Caldwell, out. We need these people out all across the nation. Until political consultants are removed, you're going to have more elections being lost. And it devastates the party. It hurts a great cause. You could see how, I don't know if you could see how well we did. You know, we won so much last year, and now it's all gone. It's all been taken away because of cowardice by people who've never been, oftentimes they're never even held accountable. But here, let me put my graph back up. Yep, these guys are the problem. This guy, Chris Caldwell, and one of his clients is, of course, Meta. That's the guy, of course, Mark Zuckerberg. He did the Zuckerberg bucks. And by the way, he suddenly supports Trump now. JCD Consulting, as I mentioned before. And then this guy also supports the Arkansas Trucking Association, which is for allowing these guys that can't even speak English to drive around across all of our interstates. Of course, he's advising Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who recently was charged with a crime that she is trying to arrest Colonel Conrad Reynolds over regarding paper ballots. And again, if you want paper ballots, you need to kick these people out, because these people will try, these consultant types will sabotage any effort regarding paper ballots. And of course, this is the political fight. We need people to get out of debt. We need people to get more involved in their churches and their communities. A long way to go regarding that. Well, not just involved in churches, but actually, doing it in a way that's effective, not just being useful for, not just being free labor for somebody, but actually making the church effective. Remember, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan. What you don't want is, you don't want to end up in a society where you're having to deal with this. I mean, we're almost there. New York is probably going to see stuff like this, because that's what happens when you elect Muslims and you let them into your area. And the problem is the New York police are probably going to start arresting girls for carrying weapons that are trying to defend themselves. That's what you don't want. Well, folks, that's it. Thank you for listening in. Share this with others. If you have any other tips or news information you want to share with me, let me know. Otherwise, you all have a good day.